All right, good morning, everybody, or good day to whenever you're seeing this presentation. This has been a long time in the works, and so I hope that this clears up a lot of confusion regarding Blue Card. The Blue Card 101 training is how we perform Blue Card Command, and we're going to go through a lot of different features of Blue Card. This does not take place of the actual Blue Card certification. We're going to dive into what that is, what that looks like, how it works. And then at the end of the day, I hope that you have a generalized, better understanding of how we perform Blue Card within the Westchester Fire Department. As always, if you have any questions, you can get with myself. You can also get with Chief Hanauer. We're both Blue Card instructor trainers, and we can help to guide you through the process. So at the core, what is Blue Card, right? We've heard Blue Card, Blue Card. We don't do Blue Card. We don't do Blue Card like them. Why do we do this? Why do we not? And it's created a lot of angst amongst our membership. And so, number one, I want to apologize for that. Um, Trying to clarify and clear up what it is, so we can get back to our grassroots of how it works. So what this is, at its core, is a incident management system and communications model. This incident management system has been around for a long time. In fact, the birth roots of Blue Card were in the Fire Command series, the same Fire Command series that birthed NIMS back in like 2003 with the ICS structures. So Blue Card is nothing more than a variant of that. It is a command and communication model. What Blue Card is not is tactics. What Blue Card is not is standard operating procedures. What Blue Card is not is how to run the fire department. And from the Blue Card training and from the Train the Trainer series, the instructors that taught us will tell us the same thing, that they don't run your fire department, they don't dictate your tactics, because an incident management system is designed to help run the emergency scene. What it does is it does implement the standard communication model and provides command training to fire officers via a standard format. And that's something that's really lacked in the fire service. So, command training, a broad spectrum across the fire service, is unique at best. In some organizations, the only command training is, hey man, you're the best guy to sit in the right front seat. We think you have what it takes, and you get up there. And thus, they've never really had any actual training. There's been zero simulations. There's been maybe they've gone to some working incidents, and because they did good one time, they get promoted. And the same thing goes with battalion officers, right? If they were a good company officer, well, by God, they better be a good battalion officer because they were great in that role. So what Blue Card does, it kind of eliminates that. It provides a checks and balances and a standard format of training in order to prepare company officers, tactical supervisors, and battalion chiefs with the ability to run what are called Type 4 and Type 5 incidents. Type 4 and Type 5 incidents would be like our residential house fires, the incidents that occur within our borders. Blue Card uses the department standard operating guidelines, so our policies and procedures, to drive tactical decisions and to maintain a strategic picture. So we have policies related to wind driven fires, related to high rise fire response, related to structure fires, related to basement fires, and we have a standard deployment model. And so what we do is we take those policies and procedures and we plug them into the Blue Card incident management system, and then we see where we align, right? And some things don't seem to be very congruent because we've lost what Blue Card actually is, or we tend to view Blue Card through the lens of our mutual aid partners. Understand that Blue Card is a system, it is a management tool. And so, as we go through this training, again, my hope is that you'll see where we align and how we should be operating. So, how do we do Blue Card? Well, again, we have standard operating procedures and guidelines for the fireground incident, namely the structural firefighting policy. We have a clear dictation of what we want our companies to do when they respond to a working fire. We also have training based on Blue Card to evaluate what are called critical fireground factors. Blue Card allows us to maintain effective span of control. It orders up appropriate resources, and we implement a standard communication model. for my entire career here, and as long as I've been doing critiques and things like that and after action reviews, communications has always presented itself as an issue. If we do blue card appropriately, it eliminates a lot of useless radio traffic. Now, you might be saying, well, hey, there's a ton of radio traffic already in blue card. There's more radio traffic than we need. There is a lot of radio traffic, but that's because we're usually not doing it right. One thing that was taught to us as instructor trainers is you have to ask yourself, is it a system issue or is it a training issue? And oftentimes it's a training issue or a lack of education issue of why we're breaking down in some of these systems. So the one thing that you'll see is the strategic decision-making model, right? So if you go through the entire blue card class, this is the core of blue card. And you see this slide a ton every time you do a simulation, right? So blue card puts you through different tactical simulations, a commercial building, a big box building and a Lowe's, an apartment fire, a house fire, and a multifamily, like I said, an apartment fire. And you go through these different simulations, repeating the process to develop what are called sets and reps. So all it does is builds up good muscle memory so that we have good habits when we're working within the incident management system. So the first part of that is we look at things called our critical fireground factors. And so if you're looking at this image, which is a fire in a 3-story multiple family dwelling, some of the critical fireground factors is there's an apartment fire. It's not rocket science. It's kind of common sense. Like, hey, what are the things that we need to immediately address with this apartment fire? And what Blue Card does is it clearly delineates what are critical fireground factors. So you as a company officer, you as an incident commander, you as first person rolling up at a medic unit can quickly look at this incident, identify a couple things that are really, really screwed up here that we need to address immediately, and then start to formulate a plan. Once we evaluate our critical fireground factors, we develop a risk management plan. And the risk management plan is either we're going to go all in, we risk a lot to save a lot. We'll risk a little bit to say in a highly calculated manner to save, savable lives, or we're not going to risk anything, right? And if we're not going to risk anything, we've evaluated that this is beyond our control or beyond our safety measures, then we switch our tactics and strategy. Once we evaluate a risk management plan, we develop a strategy. Our strategy is either offensive or defensive. So if we develop and say, hey, we're in an apartment building, there's a high likelihood that there's life safety here. Because I have a high likelihood of life safety, we're going to risk a lot to save a lot. We're in the offensive strategy. And then because we're in the offensive strategy, we develop an incident action plan. So what do we want to do? Right. So as that initial company officer on a single responding unit, so an engine company or an aerial or something, what is it that we can effectively do? If we're going for fire attack, or are we going for search? That takes us to our tactical priorities and our SOPs. So we identify the critical fireground factors. From there, develop a risk management plan, risk a lot to save a lot, risk nothing to save nothing, develop a strategy, develop an incident action plan, and then address the incident action plan with our tactical priorities and SOPs. This whole process takes about 10 seconds. So it looks like a lot, but you're doing this in a matter of 10 to 15 seconds to come up with it. And then we continue to reevaluate this plan. So when we're looking at critical fireground factors, these are a list of basic items that we must consider when evaluating our situation. So there's 8 basic categories. You can see there the what are called fixed and variable factors, but these are the 8 basic categories that the critical fireground factors fall into. The fixed factors and variable factors. So fixed factors is the building. So the building doesn't move, right? The building's burning, but the building is not going to pick up and leave. The occupancy, so what that building is used for, generally doesn't change. Even in strip malls, which is another simulation that we do, the occupancy name will change numerous times, but the occupancy type is often the same, right? One restaurant will move out, a new restaurant moves in. One store moves out, a new store moves in. So the occupancy type doesn't often change too often. Sometimes it does, of course, and we have to be aware of that. The arrangement, so how's the building positioned with other buildings? And then variable factors, things we can control. We can control the fire. We can make it go different places. We can try to put it out. The life hazard, we can control that. We can remove victims, or we become a life hazard by being in the IDLH. Resources, we can call more or send some home. The actions we decide to do, and then special circumstances like weather, time. Back in the day, we used to call this cold was wealth. So if you ever did fire officer school, within the last 5 to 10 years, you probably heard of cold was wealth. This is the exact same thing, just framed differently. So one of the things that Blue Card also does is size ups, right? So we know what an incident scene size up is, but Blue Card takes a scene size up and standardizes it for the first arriving units to describe the conditions of the incident. And so you spend a lot of time in the Blue Card training doing scene size ups, or what is known as the initial radio report, because we know that that initial radio report is so important to us. It's the first time one of our units is on scene, and what they say and what they describe and their tone is going to set the course for this incident. So we want a clear delineation and a clear vocabulary to be shared not only with us, but our mutual aid partners coming in. So size ups, we look at first the size of the building. So the size is either small, medium, large, or mega. The height of the structure, so how many stories above grade. The occupancy type, so is this in this case, right, we're looking at a house. The problem description, and so there's only 4 problem descriptions. So you either have nothing showing, smoke showing, a working fire, and defensive fire conditions. A working fire is defined as if you feel that you're going to pull a line off your truck to fix the problem, it's a working fire. So whether you have flames showing like in this image, or let's say we just have smoke coming from the front door, if you feel you're going to pull a crosslay, it is a working fire. The location of the problem, so identify, in this case, hey, I have a working fire with flames showing from the roof. Declare a strategy, either offensive or defensive, and then we establish command. So this is the Blue Card size up model. Again, a lot of us will have said, and even I've said this in the past because I was ignorant to really what we look at, is that we do Blue Card size ups. So this is taken directly from the structural firefighting policy, and it says that here the initial apparatus should provide a size up of the event. We should allow the incident commander to do it. If 2 non-command apparatus are arriving together, the company officer should provide the size up. If a command apparatus shows up, like the battalion, they should do it so that you can get to work faster. But we describe as we're on scene, size of the building, height, occupancy use, problem description, location of the problem, the initial action plan, so what we're going to be doing, declare the strategy, identify any resource needs, establish command, and then any other pertinent information. So if you look at these 2 things side by side, so the scene communications model and the Blue Card size up, they are almost identical. Almost identical. Because we take it straight from Blue Card. The size of the building matters. So Blue Card has a very generalized what the size of the building is. But Blue Card also says like, hey, you have to define this for your community. A house, for instance, 1,500 square foot or less by Blue Card standards is considered small. But Blue Card training program is nationwide. So when we implement Blue Card here at Westchester, we have some houses that are 1,500 square foot that we'd agree is small. We also have houses that are 2,500 square feet, like a 2,500 square foot 2-story, that we would probably also identify as small. And the problem is here is we get hung up as a fire service and as a department on what do we call this? How do we classify this thing? And what I'm telling you, what they told us in our training is don't get hung up on that. What you should get hung up on is the word large. If you hear the word large, we have to start thinking, hey, that might be extended lines. That might be more personnel. That might be vaulted ceilings and open concept and truss spaces. So when I hear large residential building, I'm thinking new construction. I'm thinking rapid fire events. I'm thinking that I have large open areas. And now my spidey senses start going off for safe, effective fireground operations. And can I manage this incident in the offensive strategy, or do we need to shift based on the conditions present? After the initial radio report, we know that we're going to get off and do a 360. So the officer hops off, does a quick 360. Blue Card is heavily advocates for a 360 to gain and maintain the strategic picture. This is the follow-up report. It should be performed by the first due officer, but it's not always feasible. We understand here in Westchester that we got buildings you just can't get around. It's too big. I don't expect you to drive around Westchester Hospital, but somebody needs to. So the 360 is a must by any incident commander. We have to get that 360 done. But whether that's you in the engine, we know you have to get off and go to work. So maybe the battalion grabs that for you. Maybe another command officer grabs that for you. Or maybe the second in peace gets that for you, right? But we still get a 360 because we don't know what we have presenting, right? We might have, in this case, a large 2-story house, but in the back of the house on the Charlie side, we have a 3-story house. So we have a basement, a walkout basement, and heavy fire involvement in the basement. So going back, just a couple things. So when we look at our size up modeling, how this would look is engine 71. I'm on the scene of a small 2-story single family dwelling with a working fire, flames showing from the roof of the Alpha Delta side. I'll be positioned on side Alpha on the offensive strategy, stretching a line for fire attack. I'll have command. Very simple size up. So after the 360 is complete, we radio the follow-up report, and that's transmitted according to Blue Card Command. So the follow-up report talks about the situation found, confirms the strategy, states the accountability location, and notes any safety hazards. So in this case, it would be command to all companies with a follow-up report. 360 is complete. I have a walkout basement, heavy fire involvement from the basement. We are redeploying our line to the Charlie side for a fire attack. Next due, stretch a line to the Alpha side for fire attack. Third due, take search, right? And why would we do that? Because our SOP said that we can't make entry until we have 2 companies on scene. So that would be how our follow-up report would go. So how we do it is, this is pulled directly from policy, is our 360 size up shall be completed by the first arriving officer, and the report should include the minimum things. So the number of stories on the Charlie side, the basement location, what we have, if anything, apparent, any safety hazards, reconfirm the strategy, and note the accountability location. The accountability location is super important because as command officers arrive and get pressed into divisions, that is where they're going to go to collect the accountability tags. So announcing the accountability location is very, very important so that we know where to go collect tags. Now, Blue Card just talks about that 360, but we at the Westchester Fire Department add an additional layer of safety with the 720 report. So the company officer's done a 360, and now they're inside doing work. When the command officer gets there, they do a 720 because we know that conditions change. Did the conditions of your initial radio report and follow-up report match what the incident commander's seeing now? Did the fire have rapid progression? Is there safety hazards that you didn't note? Is there something you didn't catch? So we make sure that nothing changed because we know that things change rapidly. If we look at our type of building construction in our community, we know that large open void spaces, large lightweight truss systems, new construction with new room and contents will drive fire conditions more fast. And therefore, we do a 720 report just to make sure that we're in the right strategy. Are we doing everything right? Some people would say this is micromanagement. I would counter and argue that this is an additional layer of safety for you and for everybody operating on the fire ground. So we do this 720 per policy as is written, right? We communicate that the 720 is complete. We repeat the follow-up report on a 720. We also note any gas electrical disconnect locations if we can grab those, any significant changes, and then where the egress points are, or hey, where do we need to put ladders for Rick? So let's talk about this accountability piece, because accountability is a radical change from Blue Card from what we have always done. So we consider accountability as a guy holding a really big board, tracking units at the command car, and that is not how that works. It is also not the incident commander with an even bigger board, because we want our incident commanders focusing on the fire. And so what the incident commander does in the battalion car is they track what's known as position and function. So they have a list of every truck that's on the scene, and they know where that truck is and what they're doing. So engine 71 is on the alpha side for fire attack. Engine 72 is on the alpha side for search. Ladder 75 is on the Charlie side. They have that written down. But as far as who's on each one of those units, the incident commander is not tracking that. We'll talk about where that is tracked at. It's not that we haven't gotten rid of it. It is tracked in a different manner through division bosses. Blue Card does what's called 3 deep modeling. And so at the task level, that is your company. The company officer is accountable for themselves and their crew. So the company officer of Engine 71 knows exactly who's in the hazard zone with them. They know who is in the IDLH with them. At the tactical level, when we have multiple companies working in the same area, we will push forward or employ a division supervisor. So a sector division supervisor is nothing more than a chief officer who then reports to that area of operation and can track how many companies they have. This is where you are tracked by person. So at the tactical level, I have your passport tags, and I know that I got Engine 71, Lieutenant Crow, and Firefighter Camrata, and I know I've got Engine 74, Lieutenant Ludwig, Firefighter Lousy, and Firefighter Harper, and I've got Tower 73 with Lieutenant Eberhard and Firefighter Jetter. I have that on my board in the division. All the other companies that are either operating somewhere else or operating somewhere else on the fire ground, I do not track as a division boss. I only track those in my division. It'll make more sense as we go through. At the strategic level, the incident commander is tracking all companies on scene. So from the top down, the incident commander has every single unit that has arrived in their position and function. The tactical supervisor of that division has every truck assigned to them. And then at the task level, you in the IDLH have full accountability of your crew. Company officer maintains accountability like we always do. This has never changed. So if we're sending someone up a ladder for VES, you're going with them, or at least know where they are. And if this person moves beyond the door to a search because the conditions are favorable, you're going with them, right? So we have what's called as a round trip ticket. We all go in together, we all come out together. Again, the tactical level accountability for the division boss, we add that extra layer of supervision. And all it is an additional set of eyes. We used to do this known as a safety officer, but we couldn't always guarantee a safety officer would arrive. So now we employ one via a division supervisor. That might be an internal chief like myself or another chief officer, or it might be a mutual aid chief. We employ them as a sector division supervisor, so they have a different name. Sometimes you'll hear this called a division boss. You'll hear this called alpha, and that's because they're the division boss. The work is happening on the alpha side of the building or in the alpha division. You might hear them called Bravo or Charlie or Delta. It's a division within the area. You also might hear divisions 1, 2, and 3, or in high rise 7, 8, and 9. Divisions are a geographical area. So either an area of the building, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, or a floor of the building, divisions 1, 2, 3, and 4. So a division boss is going to have a name. You can also have a functional boss, a fire attack group, a search group supervisor. The name doesn't matter. They work the exact same way, whether you're the search group supervisor or you're division 3, you are a division group supervisor. The only difference is if you're assigned division 3, you are responsible for everything that happens on the 3rd floor of this apartment building. If you're assigned the search group, you are responsible for managing all the resources assigned to you to search a building. So you either have a functional group, search, fire attack, or a division boss, which is geographical. Both work exactly the same way. And what this does is it reduces the overall span of control of the incident. At the strategic level, again, the incident command post has tracking every single resource on scene. We track this on a tactical worksheet, and it's not with Velcro tags that fall off and fall under the seat that we're going to lose. So this is what our tactical worksheet looks like. This might change in the future, but right now, this is what we're tracking. So we can track in single family who does what function. So all we do is mark what units are where. We have what units are going to rehab, what units we have staged or on deck, and just kind of position and function of everyone that's on there. So who does accountability? Because maybe this is a little bit confusing. It's announced during the follow-up. So engine 71, we're 360s complete. We have a walkout basement with flames showing from the Charlie side. We're repositioning a line to make an offensive attack through the Charlie side basement door. We're remaining the offensive strategy, and accountability will be located at engine 71 on the Alpha side. Again, this announces where it is. So any other units coming up, you can take your passport, slap it on the door of engine 71 or on the front bumper, wherever the accountability is. And then the division boss can also go retrieve those when they get in place. How we do it also is that IRIC will gather those passports and you have initial accountability at the point of entry. So if IRIC's in place, you grab the passports and you have who's working in that division. You do not have the passports of everybody on the fire ground. You only have the passports of the first few companies working on the incident. IRIC then passes accountability to the division boss once they get in place. So you may have 4 tags of the 4 companies that are working inside. You hand those off to the division boss, and now you don't have accountability anymore. It's done. It's over. So we have IMATs, chiefs, and bosses, which are lots of resources coming to an incident. And I was a hater as well and said, hey, why do we have all these chiefs responding? This is dumb. We don't need this. And the fact is, we might not. The fact is also, we may. So we cannot predict the outcome of the incident no more than you can predict the outcome of tomorrow. So if things go bad in the incident, if we lose a water supply, if we start losing things, but more importantly, if, God forbid, there's a mayday on the fire ground, there are resources here to handle that and assist in the incident. All IMATS chiefs and bosses do are allow for more eyes on the incident and more accountability and safety. They are solely there to assist the incident commander and maintain that span of control. That's it. They're only here to help. So, how's that look with us? Well, we have this scene management policy. So, we'll use command staff or IMAT to help safely staff and do division group supervisors or IC support personnel based on the needs. The big component of that is the needs. Do you need support or are you okay? If you need support, they are there. If you don't need support, we don't worry about it. So as an example, this would be a simple model, right? So we have the incident commander. There's a lot of resources here. We have multiple units that have responded, but honestly, he only has to talk to 4 people. He has to talk to Alpha, the RIC group supervisor, Charlie, and EMS. If there's nothing happening in EMS, there's nothing happening. He doesn't even talk to that guy. If there's nothing happening in the Charlie division, he doesn't talk to them. All communication flows through your division supervisor. So, how do we communicate within the division? So, you arrive on scene. You have established command. You've established an incident action plan. And now there's a command transfer. Now Battalion 70 is running the incident. Battalion 70 pushes forward a division officer. So we'll say Alpha. Once the division boss is employed, all of your communications go to the division. So if Alpha's in place and we have Tower 73, Engine 74, and Engine 71 working in Alpha, they talk to Alpha. So Alpha talks to 3 resources and Alpha talks to command. Engine 71, 74, Tower 73 does not any longer call command. There's no reason to, because Alpha has been solely tasked with figuring out how to fix things in the Alpha division. Whether that's searches, fire attack, overhaul, whatever it is, Alpha is now in charge of that division. Other companies showing up, let's say we stand up a Charlie division and we assign resources to Charlie. They report to Charlie. So you report to your division boss, who then reports out to command. And if we have a small incident and we don't employ a division boss, then communications as normal. You call command. But if a division boss is employed, we push one forward, then in that case, all communication goes through the division boss. Division bosses notify command, and communications within your division are face to face as best as possible. So let's say that you're working, you're on the second floor, and you need more resources. You call your division boss, probably by radio, and tell them what's up. I need more resources. I need hooks. I need another line, whatever it is. However, if you can do that same communication face to face, that cuts down on radio traffic. And what we are all guilty of is trying to key the radio and talk. But what we want to do through Blue Card Command is to leave the radio airwaves open and silent for Mayday radio traffic. So let's take, for instance, we have a fire at Astor Park. So excuse the crude drawing here, but you're looking at the Charlie side of Blossom Street. You have smoke showing on Alpha, and you've got a little bit of fire running the eaves on Charlie. For this fire, a one alarm assignment is on the left, and you can see how many resources we have coming. We've got 5 engines, 3 ladders, 3 medic units. So in total, I've got 8 fire apparatus, 3 medic units for 11 total resources. Under our old command system, Incident Command would have to talk to all 11 of those resources. If we think of span of control, effective span of control as defined by NFPA and in our textbooks and standards is 3 to 7 with an optimal of 5. We are over almost double that. Actually, we are over double that, right? If optimum's 5 and we're looking at 11 resources, right? If we're at 7, we're almost double. But then we call a second alarm, right? Because we need people and maybe we've got victims or whatever. And that brings an additional 5 engines and 3 ladders. So I had 11 resources before. I'm getting 8 more. I have 19 resources to manage on the fire ground. Any incident commander is going to be quickly overrun with that information. So we have to bracket this out and subdivide the incident so that it's manageable. And that looks exactly like this. So we have the incident commander, Battalion 70. They stand up a Charlie division because we have fire on the Charlie side running the eaves. And Engine 72 gets assigned to them. So Charlie's in place. They have Engine 72. We're also going to stand up an Alpha because we have hose lines going in through the Alpha side doing work. And I've got 3 resources assigned to Alpha: Engine 71, Tower 73, and Engine 74. Because I have 3 companies, the 1s, 3s, and 4s, working in Alpha inside the IDLH, I need to get them some reinforcement. Because I know that they're going to run low on air. You're going to get tired. Things are going to happen. We're going to need more resources. If you find a victim, what happens then? So I'm going to give you some on-deck companies. On deck is nothing more than a reserve of people to take over when the 1s, 3s, and 4s are done. So on deck in this case is Engine 56 and Quint 88. As the incident commander, I do not care who's on those companies or what's going on. I'm simply tracking that, yep, those companies are here, and they are now on deck in Alpha, and Alpha owns these. So Alpha has 5 resources assigned to them. We are in our optimal span of control. We continue to have a RIC team, and we'll talk about that more as we go. But we have a RIC group supervisor, and that's Ladder 75 and Medic 71. And because we have the potential for victims or a high likelihood because we have a critical life hazard, we stand up an EMS branch, which is Medic 74 and Medic 75. Again, as the incident commander, you only need to talk to likely Alpha and Charlie, right? If RIC has pertinent information, they'll talk about it. If EMS has pertinent information, they'll talk about it. But you're only talking to 2 people. And everybody else's communication is flowing through them. So Blue Card talks a lot about level 1 staging and how that works and how does that work in Blue Card. This has been the biggest friction rub of our organizations. We've adopted Blue Card. So number 1, we will maintain our SOPs, which is allowed in Blue Card. In fact, it is the last arrow of when we started. We do an incident action plan, we apply our tactical priorities. The way our system is set up, or our response model, is our SOPs allow us to target our critical factors quickly. And our critical factors are fire attack, search, and reinforcement. We want the first company to stretch lines into the building and to establish a fire attack when warranted. We want companies to aggressively search when warranted. And then we want to reinforce those companies with on deck crews so that they're able to be safely reinforced and have good work cycles. It does us no good to keep the fire attack team in there. Then they come out and realize that, yep, the fire's not out, but I have no resources here to help put it out. So that's why we're reinforcing those. Understand that our department, unlike a lot of places in the region and just a lot of departments in general, we adjust our alarm card based on occupancy type. Nobody else does that. So when we have a commercial building fire or an apartment fire, our alarm card gets beefed up than just a single family residence. Well, why is that? Well, it's because we have staffing. We have a lot more stations. We have a lot more companies. And we looked at NFPA to say what are the critical needs of a working fire incident based on NFPA standards, and how many people do we need in order to cover those positions. Most of our neighbors are much smaller than us, so they rely heavily on mutual aid. And in theory, we could handle a lot of our stuff without mutual aid. We bring them because of those NFPA standards, but most departments need a lot of mutual aid to do a lot of running together. So their SOPs are a little bit more blue card purist than ours. But our SOPs, our tactics, how we arrive to a fire and how we go to work at a fire is not dictated by blue card. Our SOPs are dictated by the command staff, by NFPA, by standards, and by what we feel is best practice in many cases. One of those is the dedicated RIC team. Blue Card does not have a dedicated RIC because Blue Card states, and is true through the Mayday studies and through data, that a dedicated RIC team is only useful in about 8% of Maydays. That is true. However, the dedicated RIC is really beneficial in our model of throwing ladders, securing utilities, getting additional eyes on the building, making sure that we have a 5-person team ready to respond if necessary. What Blue Card advocates is that the on-deck company is first and foremost a RIT team, and then they're also ready for the next assignment. So you're doing these two roles. We, as the Westchester Fire Department, have bracketed that out. You are going to be an on-deck company, and you might go for RIT. That is still a thing. Or you're available for the next assignment. But if you take the next assignment, we still have a RIT team in place on the Alpha side or Charlie or Delta or Bravo or wherever for you. We run in our opinion, a more safe operation because of that. So if we go back to our strategic decision-making model, we evaluate our critical fireground factors. We have a risk management plan. We're in the offensive strategy. We develop an IAP, which involves us stretching a line. And then we have our tactical priorities, or SOPs. So if we pull up to this apartment fire, we know that we want the first 2 companies to marry up and go for fire attack. That's our SOP for an apartment fire. Understand, though, that, hey, that might not be practical. Why do we want 2 companies? Because we know that if we're going to the 3rd floor of this apartment fire, the hose stretch is going to be difficult. We might have multiple turns. We might have obstructions. We might have limited visibility. So the incident action plan would be for the first 2 companies here to marry up, start a fire attack. And then what do the next 2 companies do? Well, we want searches done. Blue Card says that we want fire attack and search. You'll hear that radio traffic a lot through it. And what that means is we want fire control before search. And the reason for that is because if we bypass this fire that's in this image, that's running 3 floors and hitting the attic space, and we do nothing to control this fire, there's not going to be anything left to search because this fire is going to overrun us. But if we get water on this fire and start making positive change, it buys time for search. So it's not that we're stretching a hose line and we have to search off the hose line. All of us know that that's ridiculous and it does not work. But what does work is getting water on the fire and then searching ahead of the line.
Engine 74, Tower 73, Engine 71, commercial fire alarm at Hines, 9050 Center Point Drive, Park Street to Westchester Road in Mulhauser, ES 109, place fire ground 8, 2024.
So again, we use our SOPs to attack this fire. We cover all the critical positions of an initial fire attack and starting aggressive searches. And then from there, we just start backfilling with our SOPs what we want them to do. If we change this apartment fire to a house fire, it's the same thing. My first engine is going to show up to a working fire in a house. They identify the critical fire ground factors. Hey, this is a house. It's a small to medium size. It's likely occupied. I have searchable space. And so we develop a risk management plan of risk a lot to save a lot. We're going to go into the offensive strategy. We're going to stretch a line for fire attack. Next do, take a search. Third do, I want a backup line stretched to the area that is most affected, or to protect an exposure, or to protect an egress. That is how we respond. Instead of level one staging and awaiting that assignment, we do a rolling level one, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Part of all this is a lot of communication modeling. So as you're going through your size ups and your initial radio report, there is a lot of radio traffic up front. But truly within Blue Card, there's only 4 times to transmit on the radio. So number one is the roof report, which is the report you find on the roof. Blue Card is very heavy on roof reports, specifically for commercial buildings and for big box stores. Do we need a roof report for a house fire? No, we know what that is. Do we need a roof report for an apartment building? No, we know what that is. So if we don't need one, we're not going to get one. But does it make sense to send a crew up to look at the roof of a commercial building? Yes, because we want to see if we can identify a fire location. What's the roof doing? We know that with lightweight truss systems, they could bow out and fall down. They can knock down tilt up walls. So we want that stuff. However, we need to phrase our communication appropriately. So our communication would say command from ladder 75 with a roof report. Flat roof with no sagging, the roof is intact, normal dead loads, and no smoke from the vents. Command would acknowledge that. So a roof report is used in our system in commercial buildings and in big box stores, but it might not be right away, right? Because again, we in a commercial building fire, we marry up the first 2 companies for fire attack. We're going to do a targeted search of areas that are reasonably occupied or where people tell us. And if that doesn't need to happen right now, if that's not a priority for us, then we can send a company to the roof. So we get a roof report as soon as practical, and that's allowed through Blue Card. Another reason you would transmit on the radio is called the status change. So if we're moving locations within a building, if we're requesting a new assignment because our job's done, if we need to recycle outside, we call with a status change. So it looks something like this: command from engine 74 with a status change. Our primary search is all clear on the first floor. We're moving to the second floor for search. And what that does is maintain strategic, tactical, and task level accountability. We have 3 layers of accountability in this system versus our old system, which was just moving tags around a board. We had no idea where anybody was. So you call a status change when you need to move spots or change what you're doing. Then we have priority traffic. This is important. Priority traffic is a condition that needs to be announced. So this isn't, hey, we got water on the, hey, we're doing a really good job in here. We still want our tactical benchmarks, but priority traffic is something that everyone needs to pay attention to. So like we can't complete an assignment. We've located a victim. We found hidden fire, whatever it is. So command from engine 71 with priority traffic. Located a victim on the second floor. We need a ladder to the Charlie side and EMS to the Charlie side. That would be an example of the third reason to get on the radio. And the fourth reason is mayday traffic, which is simply just a mayday. The way communications work is through the radio order model. So this is how we need to phrase our radio communications. It's not just blind radio yelling and screaming as has happened in the past. It is a very specific reason you're calling. So you'll call with the intent of what you want to talk about. So unit calls command states reason for the message. Command from engine 71 with a status change. Command acknowledges that because now they know what you want to talk about. Go ahead, engine 71. You send the message and it's formatted as conditions, actions, and needs. So what do you have? What's going on about it? And what do you need? The need being the biggest component of that. Because if you don't say it, I have to respond back with, well, what do you need? So we have a knockdown of the fire on the second floor. We're overhauling and need an additional company to assist. So my conditions, I had a fire on the second floor. My actions, I've knocked it down, I'm overhauling. And my needs, I need another company up here. Command acknowledges that and repeats that back. Command's clear, you got to knock down the second floor and need a company to assist. Then they advance you what you need, right? They try and get you that resource that you need up there to help. If Alpha's in place, Alpha is going to call command with this, or you call Alpha. So it would be Alpha from engine 71 with a status change. Go ahead, engine 71. We have a knockdown. We need another company to assist. And then Alpha calls command for those resources. It allows for a simple, easy check-in and check-out process of the ideal agent, reduces freelancing completely. So how we format this message, and let's say that we're Tower 73. It would be, and let's say that Division Alpha is in place. Alpha from Tower 73 with priority traffic. Go ahead, Tower 73. Alpha, we've opened up the ceiling above us. I got heavy fire in the attic space. I need an additional hose line in here and an additional company with hooks to help expose us and to help expose. Alpha's clear. Then they advance you the companies they need, hopefully from their on-deck reserve. If they don't have anything on deck, they're going to call command and bring an on-deck crew. So we do this 3 deep modeling so that you always have a strategic or tactical reserve. So then why do we do this RIC, right? If we're going to have all these on-deck companies and have all this tactical reserve and all this stuff, then why the RIC? Well, it's because we feel that a dedicated RIC company is best for our operations. Again, we feel that that RIC company going around and softening the building, throwing ladders, securing utilities, opening doors and then closing them back to limit flow path, identifying and reading the building and having a good clue as to what's going on with fire conditions is extremely safe. They're still an on-deck company. They're just on deck for RIC. And they still maintain an inside-out concept for firefighter rescue. So it's not that if there's a mayday, is this RIC going to deploy? Yeah, likely so. Are they going to make the rescue? Probably not, based on statistics. So if you look at how this marries up to Blue Card runs what's called an inside-out model, meaning that if there's a mayday, the company closest to the immediate crew is going to start saving their own. If that doesn't work, then the company nearest that crew is going to start making it, then an adjacent crew, and then the RIC team. Well, we have that same exact thing here. So we want to increase firefighter safety. It applies to all members. We have an IRIC and a RIC, which we're the only people to do that, which allows us to do 2 in, 2 out effectively. And they're under the best conditions possible. When Blue Card is doing stuff, again, self-rescue if possible, your own company saves you, a nearby company saves you, and then rescue by a RIC team is only 8% effective. We understand that. So, when one of these below strategies should be employed to rescue a Mayday firefighter. It can be utilized in the quickest order, but this is taken directly out of our policy. It is exactly like Blue Card. So we do this same help order in our policies and procedures as Blue Card teaches. So the last things to button up, we talked about groups and divisions. Again, both will exist through Blue Card. Groups are functional, so fire, attack, search, etc., where divisions are geographical, like the Alpha side, Charlie, Division 2, Division 3, Division 1, Division 9, whatever. It makes little sense to do groups and divisions, right? So you're not going to have a Division 2 fire attack. That's not really a thing. You're going to have Division 2. And the Division 2 boss is in charge of fire attack, search, and whatever they need. And as command, I push forward the resources Division 2 asks for. Same thing with Alpha. If you're the Alpha boss, you're in charge of everything in Alpha. So they are solely responsible for handling things in that division, and just subdivides and makes your incident much more easy to manage. Many agencies will stick solely to divisions. We tend to augment based on occupancy type, but that's more of a guideline between the incident commanders. So we kind of can go back and forth. We don't want to pigeonhole our incident commanders to one thing. We want them to have the experience and the ability to expand into groups if necessary, because we go to a wide range of different types of incidents. When it comes to staging, Blue Card says that you will stage and park and report level 1, which slows the incident down. A lot of our neighbors will do this. However, if you're the first engine and you're inside and you really need assistance right now, me stopping my apparatus a couple blocks away doesn't really help you. So we do rolling level 1s. And in going through the Blue Card class, I find out that, hey, a lot of people do rolling level 1s. So we roll level 1s to confirm our task assignment with the initial incident commander. That's based on our SOPs. So with the structural firefighting policy gives us a framework to work off of for 90% or so of our incidents. But we understand and know that, hey, there's going to be outliers, or there's going to be reasons why, hey, the second dude can't take search. I got too much fire involvement. I need another line right now. The reason you do the rolling level 1 is to confirm that, hey, am I still doing search? Nope, I need you to take a line. Cool, got it, taking a line. So that's why we mark level 1 several blocks out, confirm your assignment with command to make sure, are we sticking with the policy or are we deviating due to incident needs? It's real easy to write down on paper what we should do, but the fire and the building get a vote. And so if the fire conditions are too progressed, or the building doesn't, or the building dictates we have to change tactics or pivot, that's why we do rolling level 1s. Again, the structure firefighting policy is a framework of how we operate on 90% of our incidents. It covers all the tasks that need to be handled per NFPA in our deployment model. That's why we apply it to an incident management system. It is, our tactics are not Blue Card, because Blue Card isn't tactics. Blue Card is an incident management system. We go on deck. When crews are assigned to go on deck and the division assigned, or they wait in staging. So we either advance you to Alpha to go on deck on Alpha. When you're on deck, you are part of the division's tactical reserve. Be ready to replace companies in the hazard zone. The other thing you have to remember is that you also should bring a RIT bag, because if you're walking up, especially with our mutual aid partners, on deck and our mutual aid areas is also RIT. It's the same process here. So if a mayday kicks out, that on deck company might be the first ones in the door to start assessing if we have multiple firefighters down. The RIC team can assist and support in that, but that on deck company needs to be prepared for that as well. But they're also ready to advance a line, hook the ceiling and overhaul, salvage work, secondary searches, all the other things that have to happen on the fire ground. That's why we maintain our RIT. If you are on deck, bring a RIT bag, bring the tools necessary for you to work. Otherwise, wait in staging. If you go level 1 and you don't get pulled forward, just stay in level 1. So how we do on deck is our 5th arriving fire company, right? So this is for a residential fire. So the 5th arriving fire company to a residential fire, we report on deck, and they'll either perform ventilation or truck ops coordinated with attack, or just sit there, right? If it's a kitchen fire and it's out and we don't need anything, we're going to level 1 stage, right? The reason that we have our 5th due going on deck is because we already have 4 companies working. We got a RIT team established, a backup line, a search crew going, and an initial attack line. So we know that our 5th company is going to get work. So they advance and go on deck. Everyone after that goes to level 1 staging. They might be pulled on deck as well, or they might sit in level 1. It just depends on what we have. So to summarize all this stuff up, we at the Westchester Fire Department are a blue card fire department. We just don't do it the way that our mutual aid neighbors do. So when we look at blue card and we look at our mutual aid neighbors, we tend to have we have a tendency to blend those two things together. And that's not the way to do it. Blue card is an incident management system. Blue card's an incident management system for them, but we have to take our SOPs because all firefighting is local. We have to take what we can do as the Westchester Fire Department within our running district and our community and put that into the system. If you're working for a smaller fire department with less resources in a different type of running area, different type of construction, different type of homes, they take those SOPs and plug it into the system. So the system works. It's how our SOPs and how we as a command staff have decided we want to respond to fires. We have adequate staffing for many incidents, better staffing than most of our mutual aid partners. We adjust our run cards based on the incident type. A structure fire in a house is very different than a structure fire in a mid-rise. We're the only departments around that do that. We have NFPA-driven tactical priorities. So Blue Card commits the first engine and first truck only in simulation because it's a national training platform. We commit our balance of the alarm card so that we cover all the necessary tactical positions fast. We do rolling level ones, but assume coming in that you're probably going to take that next assignment. So if you're a second due, you're probably taking search for a house. If you're third due, you're probably pulling a backup line. You're doing a rolling level one to confirm that's what's needed right now, but anticipate those assignments. We have that written in SOPs. We can deviate those as necessary, right? We've been down that road before numerous times. If the incident tactics don't match what you have, then we have to adjust our tactics, right? So the house and the fire get a vote, and at the end of the day, you have to match your tactics with your incident needs. We keep a dedicated RIC because a lot of NIOSH recommendations are for RIC teams. If you look at a lot of line of duty reports, it's a lack of RIC teams. We didn't establish a rapid intervention crew. No one trained on rapid intervention. So we decided to keep that. It adds an additional layer of safety. It keeps an additional set of eyes on the building. And at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt anything. And at the end of the day, we also believe in aggressive search of all reasonably occupied spaces that are affected by fire. We are not searching with a hose line. We are searching probably ahead of a hose line, but that hose line is in place to start fire attack, right? We aren't holding off entering buildings just because we're stretching a line. We're still going to dive in and take search operations aggressively because our citizens need that. But we can do that same aggressive search operation through an incident management system called Blue Card and have task, tactical, and strategic level accountability, have multiple redundant layers of safety, and make the incident better. And that's how we do this at the Westchester Fire Department. Again, if you guys have any questions, by all means, get with me. Hope that clears some stuff up. Thank you.